Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney at the R&R Law Group. We're located in the always beautiful and sunny Scottsdale, Arizona. And today we are covering prosecutors. We're talking about judges. We've got police officers. And of course, we've got some Hunter Biden. Here we go. This is what we've got over from our mind map. And you can see we've got three big categories, three big topics that we are going to get into today. And the first one that we're going to hit is a little bit of leftovers from the House Judiciary Committee that took place. We've already covered some of that. In fact, yesterday we learned from Jerry Nads Nadler, who told us that there was a big hack of the federal court management system. And that was a big deal. I mean, that's sort of like, what do you mean, 3 foreign hostile actors hacked the federal courts? Yeah, they did. But that's not the only national security threat. There's also Hunter Biden, who has been engaged in all sorts of nefarious business for a long time now. And so there's three different things I want to talk about related to Hunter today. Of course, very interesting thing happening on Twitter. I'm not sure if you've seen this, but Twitter is actually censoring the Epoch Times now. And here's what they say. They say the link that you're trying to get to today has been identified as spammy or unsafe. So we're going to take a look at that. I mean, why is Twitter censoring the Epoch Times? I don't know why that might be, but they're trying to hide the Hunter story, obviously. Now, yesterday there was a lot of conversation with this guy, Matthew Olsen, the Assistant Attorney General for the United States government. Over there, he was being asked a bunch of questions from Jerry Nadler and others, including Matt Gaetz. Now, something interesting happened yesterday, very actually kind of hysterical, is Matt Olsen. He's the same guy that came out and told us that they were creating this entire DVE division at the DOJ, the Domestic Violent Extremist Division, and they're going to go and investigate, all of the extremists. And, he's very, very focused on certain categories of extremists, not all categories, but only certain ones of, of the Republican variety. And he, is sort of really focused on America, he says. Now, several national security implications might come of a guy named Hunter Biden engaging with the Chinese and others, right? Maybe in Ukraine and other places around the world in order to conduct business that might be a national security interest problem if we're in the middle of World War III or even not, right? Just in general, it's kind of not a good thing. So something fun happened at the House Judiciary Committee. You'll notice now, if you don't like Matt Gaetz, I apologize in advance. We've got a lot of Matt Gaetz today. And the reason why I think it's important, I think that Matt Gaetz, I'm not necessarily somebody who agrees with his methodology. Okay. I really wish politics wasn't like this, but this is how it's going. And this is the new field, right? Like we have like these new super Republicans, just like we've got these super Democrats. Everybody's just like really, really aggressive. And that's how it just has to be now, right? And we're not actually getting to the bottom of anything. So we actually have Matt Gaetz, several different congresspeople, several representatives sent over all of their time to Matt Gaetz, right? What happens at these hearings is they break up time. You get 5 minutes and you get 5 minutes and you get 5 minutes. And everybody said, I don't want my 5 minutes. Matt, would you like him? And he said, yeah, I'll take him. Give him all to me. And he went after Mr. Olsen for about 10 minutes and it was some fun. So we'll check in on some of that. We also have Andy Biggs from Arizona went after Mr. Olsen on the Hunter Biden stuff. And so there's a lot there and we'll go through that. We got some clips from the actual proceeding, which is kind of spicy. It's pretty fun. Matt Gaetz is on one. He's, you son of a, I can't wait till your mother and all these things. It was pretty fun. So we'll get to that. And then the last part of the Hunter Biden saga was from Bill Barr. He is now out here saying, might be time for special counsel. Maybe we should actually appoint somebody to go and take a look at old Hunty Poo, because what's happening now with Delaware and the DOJ seems like it may not be working out all that well. As we heard, there was a memo from Grassley, a letter actually sent over to the FBI and the DOJ, where Grassley, the corn farmer from Iowa, who we talked about, this guy, right? He came out and he said, your FBI is the most corrupt thing I've ever seen in my whole life. Okay. And I've been around a long time. You guys are the worst, is what he said. And we'll have to catch our breath on that one. But that's going to be all part of the Hunter saga. That's going to be in the first segment on the program today. And then we're going to jump into segment number 2. Now, we talked a little bit about this one when the story broke, but Kavanaugh, right? He almost got assassinated by somebody. And, you know, it's actually turning into a kind of an interesting story. Not just a crazy kind of a story. There's actually like a lot of online communications going on. I'm not saying that this young man is not troubled. He certainly is. But he's now filing a motion to suppress his statements via his public defender. And they are sort of waiving time on the speedy trial provisions. And we also now have the indictment, and we have the actual affidavit, which was unsealed. The affidavit details what he did, and then Fox News got a copy of the actual search warrant that was authorized for his home residence, and you can see some of the things he was searching for. He's searching for how to be an assassin and how to stab somebody to death and weird things like that, you know. And you go, okay, not too good, but we're sort of thinking about this in the context of old Mr. Olsen, right? You know, a lot of language about these DVEs, these domestic violent extremists, but they're all saying that they're government people, you know, they're anti-government people, or people who are contesting, you know, the official narrative of whatever issue that is a fictional narrative. They say, if you contest our fiction, you're dangerous. And okay. But now, right there, we're actually seeing some real danger. We're seeing young men who are being brainwashed into going and assassinating Supreme Court judges. And not a lot of media out about that, but certainly an interesting case, and we'll take a look at it. He's filed a motion to suppress, so he's trying to get his admissions, to get a lot of his statements actually thrown out. We'll take a look at that one. And then lastly, now this could be a little bit of a spicy meatball here, my friends. We haven't done one of these in a while, and for good reason. YouTube was very unhappy the last time we spent some time covering an actual police shooting. I got all sorts of trouble over it and other issues. And then, after January 6th, we got demonetized for 9 months. And I think I've learned how to, be a little bit more careful about some of the content that we cover here. But we are going to spend some time on this because there is a lot of debate about this officer-involved shooting, this OIS. Now, you can see just a snapshot of this here. This involves this guy. His name is Paul Chavez Jr. You can see him. He's got his shirt off. And he was shot and killed from this distance. Take a look, right? This is a screenshot right before the shooting took place. Oh, and so we've got multiple different versions of this body cam that we'll take a look at from both of these officers. This guy in the front here, he had a taser. And then the guy in the back had a gun and actually shot him from right there, right about that distance. And he had something in his hand. What is in his hand? Is that a gun? I don't know. So we'll take a look at that. Now, I am not going to play the actual death parts of the video. Okay, those are all, I've actually edited them out of the program for today, so I didn't even accidentally play them. Hopefully I don't do that. But if you want to watch them, if you actually want to see the full incident, including the death, then you can go over to either the Modesto actual YouTube channel, and you have to log in and see it. It's age restricted. So if you go over to the Modesto Police Department channel, you can see them. Or if you go to this guy's YouTube channel, Burris, Nisenbaum, Curry, and Lacey, you can see this angle as well, which is another very sort of gruesome angle. But you'll notice we posted this on our locals chat, and I asked the community sort of, what are your thoughts on this? And we've got just a whole slew of comments. Look at this. Whoa, lots of debate on it. And so we'll see if we can tease out some of what's going on here. But we've got law enforcement people. I don't know a lot, but we have law enforcement officials. We've got Sergeant Bob, we've got former LEO, and there were some others who sort of outed themselves to say, I've got an opinion on this. And we'll get into that. We've got actual, an actual OIS report from Brandon Gillespie, who is the police chief, and he is going to walk us through what happened, including the 911 calls. We also are going to learn a little bit more about the guy who was shot and killed, Paul Chavez, take a look at the video that the attorney released, and then also look at California law along with the comments thread. And so, my goodness, as you can see, boy, do we have a lot to get to. And my friends, if you want to be a part of the show, the place to do that is over at the aforementioned community. It's over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And I almost just deleted our node here on our mind map. But there it is. There's the web address, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Vientikis is over there. He says, I'm hungry, period. Well, it's about dinner time. It's time to eat. John McGarvey's there. Zach Nichols is in the house. We have Jumpin' Jeff, One Tough Chick, Sousen Academy, John McGarvey, and others. And as I mentioned, right, there's a whole chat thread about that shooting. If you want to chime in on that, come check it out. Thank you also for joining over on YouTube. Click that join button right next to the subscribe button. And if you're in that area, hit that thumbs up, that like button. I appreciate it. Don't forget that I am a lawyer. I am at a partner at the R&R Law Group, a criminal defense law firm located in Scottsdale, Arizona. We love to help good people charged with crimes. I just made sort of a firm update video. I went over several different projects that we're working on. Super excited about what we're going to be able to deliver to criminal defense. And I don't mean just at our law firm. I'm thinking like 5 years down the road. Big things, my friends. And it's all starting right here at the R&R Law Group. Free case evaluations, 480-787-0394. So please come check us out. And all right, now, shout outs to our mods who are modding down the forts before we jump in. I see Vientikis playing hookies here. Lava Java Lava. Curtis Bartle's a member. Welcome to Curtis. And Ronnie Cole are in the houses over there. And let's see. We're queuing up the mind map so that we can really get into this thing. And yeah, it's going to be some more Hunter. Now, I am kind of tired of talking about Hunter, but it's just something that we got to attend to because he is the president's son. Unfortunately, we'll see how much longer that lasts. But this is the saga, and it continues. Matt Gaetz went after the DOJ, the Department of Justice, and Matthew Olsen over Hunter Biden, right? DOJ, they have a division there that's supposed to investigate national security problems. And Hunter Biden might be a national security problem, especially if there is some background with him and the Chinese and maybe some other nefarious actors throughout the world. But Matt Gaetz was in a House Judiciary Committee. He is a part of the House of Representatives. And Matthew Olsen, this guy, was actually in there. And there are several different clips of Matt Gaetz going after him. And typically the way this works is each representative gets, 5 minutes. But Matt Gaetz inherited time from other representatives, other Congress people who said, you can have my time. I yield my time over to Matt Gaetz. So Matt Gaetz got a whopper 5 minutes there. Then we'll check in, see what Andy Biggs had to say. And then Matt Gaetz got another whopper 5 minutes there. Barr, of course, is now saying it's time to appoint special counsel. But the first thing that stands out about this Hunter Biden saga, the very sort of crux, the beginning of all of this, it makes it difficult to learn about Hunter Biden if you can't see the stories, if the stories are being censored. And when I was researching some of this stuff today and clipping for today's show, what I found was when I tried to click over to this Twitter link, and let's see if it works right now. This, of course, is live, but the Epoch Times, right? This is what they posted. And they posted this July 29th, which it's today, right around lunchtime. They said, unfortunately, the FBI can no longer be trusted to investigate the Hunter Biden story with integrity and the equal application of the law. That's a story, that's a quote coming from Ron Johnson criticizing the FBI, saying that the Bureau was weaponized against 2 U.S. senators in August 2020. Now, we've already talked about this story, okay, so I'm not going to belabor the point on the story if you missed that. We talked about Chuck Grassley, the senator from Iowa, who gave us a little bit of lesson on how corn grows. It's actually very interesting. We also saw that he sent this letter back on July 25th over to the FBI and to Merrick Garland, and he said, I'm pretty sure you guys lied to us, okay? You lied to senators. We were investigating this, and both of your agencies lied to us about what we wanted to know. And so obviously they're pretty, upset about that. The whole story involved these two guys, Timothy Theobald and Brian Outen, 2 FBI agents who were basically, kind of hiding the stories. They were miscategorizing it. Legitimate stories were classified as misinformation, and then they were just sort of thrown in the dumpster. So when you go over on the Epoch Times, now let's see if this happens, right? If you're just browsing around on Twitter and you just want to, I don't know, this sounds like an interesting story. Oh, maybe I'll even heart it and click it. Let's see what happens. Oh, there it is. It worked, right? That happened in real time. This is still happening. I thought that maybe this was an error and, it only happened this morning and maybe this wasn't going to be the thing. But look at this. They are giving you a warning. This is a blockade. Like, you can't go to this. This is just a regular link to the Epoch Times, just a regular story. It says, the link you're trying to access has been identified by Twitter and our partners as unsafe and spammy. Malicious links that could steal information, violent, misleading content that could lead to real-world harm, right? Very generic, spammy links that mislead people, and so on. And so, I don't know. I mean, I've been reading the Epoch Times for quite some time, and I don't know. I've never felt like it was a danger to me or anything. And so they're actually blocking you, right? So how many people are going to click this and go, what? And just not go to the Epoch Times? I click continue, and then it'll take you to the story, right? There it is. But they won't actually let you see it without giving you that little warning wall, which is really a disturbing thing. I got to tell you that. I mean, they haven't learned a thing, right? They were the people who banned, I think, the New York Post back when this saga started in the first place, but they are still making it more difficult to learn more about the story. So that goes on. Meanwhile, we now actually have Matthew Olsen. And for those of you not familiar with Mr. Olsen, he is, as I've said before, I think that there are really the deputies in charge over at the DOJ. Merrick Garland, he's kind of this nice figurehead. He just kind of, goes from room to room, just like Joe Biden. But he's got some deputies in charge who actually run things. This guy's one of them. It's Matthew Olsen. He is over at the National Security Division at the Department of Justice. And he's the same guy who came out with Jill Sanborn at the FBI, who makes faces like this every time she gets asked a question. Hey, who is Ray Epps? She goes, I don't know. No idea. And so they came out and they announced that they were going to be creating this domestic violent extremist group and begin investigating Americans. And we were on this channel. I was jumping out of my seat, screaming with fury. But the rest of the country was just like, well, I mean, January 6th was, pretty serious business. And they were cramming this all down our gullets, basically the next couple of months, right after the fact. We have to gobble up all these powers. We need new authorities. We need to go investigate all of our political opponents. We need to purge them of the military, purge them out of all of the major infrastructures, out of the DOD, and then go after certain Supreme Court judges' wives, go after certain Congress people, go after people in the media, and then purge any deputies that would have been Trump's second in command, like Bannon and Navarro and all of those people. Okay, you get the gist of it. It's this guy. It's him and Lisa Monaco. They're behind the whole thing, in my humble opinion on this. And so finally, he gets called into Congress to answer some questions about some of this stuff. And you think, well, that's what Congress is supposed to do, okay? Because Congress has the power of the purse, and you look at what they are obligated to attend to as Congress, as a legislative branch, and they pass bills to spend money, and they're supposed to be able to sort of keep tabs on that money, right? What's happening with it? And so they create these committees and they call these people in. Hey, we pay the Department of Justice like $1 gazillion for all of your, investigations over there. So why don't you come in here and answer some questions about where that money's going? How about that, Matthew? Right, that's what's supposed to go on. And he's supposed to go in there and say, yeah, we work on the same government, on the same team. So I don't like some of these questions. And yes, I should be doing a better job. But here's the answer, right? And they're actually get to the bottom of, get some answers out of this. But we're not going to see much of this because they're very highly trained. Matthew Olsen has been in there for his whole life, right? He's been a career prosecutor. He's going to say for 16 years or whatever. So he's been there his whole life before he even got into this role. And now is finally the opportunity to get some answers on some of this. And without any further ado, here is Matt Gaetz. And he comes in and he's kind of like, it's almost like an interception, but you're on the same team. It's kind of like an alley-oop is really, I think, the better term for this. Right, you throw it up and somebody just grabs it and just crushes it and dunks it. It's kind of what's happening here. You're going to hear Matt Gaetz. He's kind of waiting on the wings. He's like, yeah, I'm just over here. Just don't mind me. And somebody's like, I yield my time to Mr. Gaetz from Florida. And then he just goes off. Let's go.
Mr. Massey is recognized for 5 minutes.
Massey,
I yield to my friend from Florida, Mr. Gaetz.
Gaetz, you're
up.
Is
Hunter Biden a national security threat?
Okay, so let me back up just real quickly. He is the National Security Division head. Okay, this guy, Mr. Olsen. Just to be clear, National Security head. So the first question out of Matt Gaetz, is Hunter Biden a national security threat? You'd expect the head to know that, wouldn't you?
Mr. Massey is recognized for 5 minutes.
I yield to my friend from Florida, Mr. Gaetz.
Is Hunter Biden a national security threat?
That's not a question that would come up before me, Congressman.
No. You're the head of the National Security Division, so it seems sort of on the nose.
It's not in my practice or experience to identify individuals
not in my purview.
and to
We've
label
heard that
any individual, an American citizen, or any individual as a national security threat.
Well, you would certainly concede that if the adult offspring of the President of the United States or the Vice President were compromised, that would be a national security threat, right?
We speak through our filings in court, and we speak through our actions in open court. So I would,
okay, well, speak to this. Where's the laptop?
In that position.
Do you know where Hunter Biden's?
So we speak through, you're going to hear that a lot, right? We speak through our court documents, we speak through our filings and blah, blah, blah. And, I guess the question is, are we going to see any filings? Are we going to see any indictments? And, to be fair to him, there's only so much you can say about this. If you are in his position, right, really the right answer is I can't talk about specific investigations. I can't jeopardize, even if we are investigating Hunter Biden, I can't answer that. Now, like, I understand that, I get it. I understand that is the right answer. And that is the way that these guys hide behind all the reality is they just come out and they give the appropriate, facially appropriate responses. And what can you do? You can't fault them for it because it is basically like a shield, right? They're doing those things for the right reason. But at the same time, they're doing a bunch of ridiculous, nefarious stuff behind the scenes that nobody can account for, because they're basically unaccountable, right? The FBI can collude with Michael Sussman. He doesn't get prosecuted. He does get prosecuted, but not convicted, even though we all know he did it. And the same thing goes on and on and on with there's many examples of this. So here, now, if you say, well, isn't it reasonable for Congress to have some oversight over the money they spend over these committees that they've created? Seems reasonable, but he just comes out every single time. I can't comment on particular investigations. We're like, ah! So how do you get oversight over something like this? Legitimate smoke that the president's son is engaged in serious criminal activity, like serious, right? If you really, look at some of that stuff on that laptop, you go, holy, it's not good. And it's all floating out there all over the place. So here is now Matt Gaetz continuing on.
Whose laptop is?
Where is the laptop?
Again, I'm not going to talk about any potential ongoing investigation as I sit here.
Do you know where it is?
I'm not going to talk about any ongoing investigation.
You come here and you tell us you follow the facts and the law, but you can't even follow a laptop that you guys have had for 3 years.
We follow the facts and the law, and we speak in open court about our cases.
But you aren't speaking about this. But you know who is speaking about it? The whistleblowers from the FBI who've gone to Senator Grassley and said that you guys purposefully take any information that is derogatory about Hunter Biden and you go and rat hole it so that you never have to speak about it in any circumstance. But the good news is you're not the only ones with that laptop. So Patrick Ho was convicted of bribing government officials in Africa, and he gave $1 million to Hunter Biden. Are you familiar with that?
I'm not going to speak about any ongoing investigation.
Is that an ongoing investigation?
I'm not going to speak about any potential ongoing investigation.
Don't you see that degrades the...
So I actually wish that Gaetz here would have sort of zoomed out a little bit on this, sort of rather than specifically about Patrick Ho or about Hunter Biden. He said, are there, maybe started out further zoomed out. Are there any ongoing investigations about whatever, right? A broad topic, and then narrow that in. Like I was trying to think of one of the corporations that Hunter Biden was involved in, right? How about, is there, you're a national security advisor. Are there any investigations being open right now that involve Chinese nationals? And he say, probably I can't comment on any of that stuff. But then you would zoom in, right? The question is, of course, if you want him to get to that final question where that line is drawn. What is he willing to talk about and what is he not willing to talk about? How broad of things is he willing to talk about? Because we know he's willing to put people into big, broad buckets if they are anti-government COVID lockdowns, if they question the 2020 election, right? These are big buckets that he's perfectly willing to put people in. So now the question is, what bucket is Hunter Biden in that we can shove in his face and say, are you investigating the people in this bucket, just like you're investigating the people in the J6 bucket? But Matt Gaetz never really gets there. He sort of keeps it zoomed in on names, and that gives this guy the out to not make any comments because they're names.
The country's belief in you guys when you have
Rosemont Seneca. Yeah, right. So that's from Blue Peon, right? He sort of refreshed my recollection there. He says, yeah, you'd say, are there any investigations into any foreign actors involved in financial transactions with United States citizens? It's so broad. He's probably goes, well, yeah, I mean, we're looking at all sorts of things. Are there anything that involve the financial transactions of the sale of mining rights? And then he goes, well, maybe, we focus on all sorts of security endeavors here, there, and whatever. And then the next question is, there was a one in particular transaction from Rosemont Seneca that involved the transaction. Are you looking at that one? And then he'd say, well, I'm not commenting on anything specific. And you say, okay, because Hunter Biden worked there, right? And then you sort of have him trapped a little bit, because then he's sort of sitting there going, well, we're looking at it, but we're not looking at it. And so we know that you're looking in the general area, but then he hits the brakes and he doesn't want to talk about it anymore, right? So we don't actually have much of that here.
Whistleblower saying that you're purposefully rat-holing this information, and then you come here and say you won't talk about it. I mean, you know, inside Hunter Biden's multi-million-dollar deals with a Chinese energy company, Washington Post, Matt Vizier, Chinese elite paid $31 million to Hunter and the Bidens, Peter Schweitzer in the New York Post. Hunter Biden's business partner called Joe Biden the big guy in panic messages. Do you guys call Joe Biden the big guy at the Department of Justice?
So I think it's important to understand why we don't speak about.
So he's just dunking on him now. Now Matt Gaetz is not after any answers to any questions. He's just rubbing his nose in it. And this is a pretty decent answer from Olsen, right? This is why they don't respond to these things. And, you know, they know that, which is why they don't, you know, which is why they can do a bunch of bad stuff without having to talk about it, because they know that they have like this force field. It's like that card in what's it, like Uno or something, right? Whatever. Well, remember that game? You have to pull out a card. You got like the 4 colors on there, and you're just like, you're always fighting for those cards, and you'll kill your little brother over it. You're like, I will rip your arm out of your socket for those 4 cards. And maybe you do, you know, sometimes it happens. But here's Gaetz, and here's Olsen and his response.
Cases outside of the courtroom.
By the way, I already know why.
Sir, if I may answer the question.
You know why you don't speak about it? Because it's about Hunter Biden.
Yeah.
You guys have no problem leaking about other stuff, right? Like, you got no problem going out and tagging parents at school board meetings as a national security threat. But when all of the facts and all of the law are before you regarding the corruption of Hunter Biden, you don't want to speak to that at all. And it's precisely why you've got folks that are talking to Senator Grassley about it. Bohai Harvest. So 10 days after Vice President Biden takes Hunter Biden to China, 10 days after this long, toiling venture of Hunter Biden that can't get off the ground, 10 days after they go, he automatically gets approved. So for a deal in China with Bohai Harvest, like, have you guys looked into that?
So like that's the one you zoom out further on, like Bohai Harvest. I think that was a mining company. Or you investigate foreign American nationals, or dealing with foreign nationals, American citizens and foreign nationals, and then zoom in on that Bohai Harvest rather than just going Bohai Harvest, right? Because obviously he's not going to comment on that. But this is a very interesting comment from Blue Peahen over on Rumble. And this is something that I actually have a little bit of insight on. So some time ago, do you guys remember when Clubhouse was very new and very big and popular? I was on a small Clubhouse room when Matt Gaetz was in there, and it really felt like kind of an intimate conversation. And it was a weird thing. And somebody asked him about, this was like right in the middle, early COVID, so like 2 years ago. Somebody was asking him about his style and about whether the Republican Party needed this style, right? Whether they needed it. And the comment on Rumble from Blue was, Gaetz is creating video clips for Twitter. Okay, that's all this is, right? 5 minutes of that. And I agree with that. I really think that largely that is what this is. And the question is, why is that? Because that's the playing field now, right? The whole game has changed. That's what it comes down to. That's why you're seeing him do a podcast, Marjorie Taylor Greene do a podcast. An entire conservative conglomerate is rising up to combat the AOCs, right? And the Barack Obamas, really, who was the guy who kind of revolutionized a lot of the social media stuff and took advantage of it. And now the Republicans are a little slow, right? They're a little slow to the game on some of this stuff, but they're picking up. I mean, I don't know if you've seen what Kari Lake is doing here in Arizona, but she's crushing it with the social media stuff. She's like a national name because of social media. And look, regardless of whether you agree or disagree with Matt Gaetz, or whether you like or dislike Matt Gaetz or whatever, it's effective. He's playing along the same lines as them, and it's capturing a lot of attention. And right now, right, in this current environment, attention is as valuable as anything, right? People kill each other for attention. You know, I make a lot of effort to keep your attention. Don't you click away, right? To keep people engaged. And that's what the Republicans do. And that's what the Democrats do. And they're trying to capture your eyeballs. And so Matt Gaetz is doing that.
I'm not going to talk about any ongoing investigation.
Well, you know who else is talking? Tony Bobolinsky. Tony Bobolinsky told the world that Joe Biden was cut in on a CCP energy deal that was orchestrated by Hunter Biden. Like, have you guys talked to Tony Bobolinsky?
No.
Again, we don't talk about ongoing investigations in settings such as this.
So Joe Biden, well, okay, how about this? Will you commit to a classified briefing on these matters?
I'd certainly be happy to talk to you or any member of the committee about matters of national security.
Okay, well,
but I don't talk about. I do not talk. We do not talk outside of courtrooms about ongoing investigations.
Well, is there an ongoing investigation of the annual fund dinner that happened where Joe Biden was vice president of the United States and Hunter Biden holds his fund's annual dinner at the Chinese embassy? But in order to do that, in order to get the Chinese embassy to roll out the red carpet for Hunter Biden and to raise money for his fund, he had to go to the embassy 30 minutes before and have a one-on-one meeting with the Chinese ambassador. Do you think it's possible that that meeting might have jeopardized national security?
He's mocking him.
I'm not going to comment about any potential or ongoing investigation.
Well, here's the thing.
All right.
It's pretty easy to see that Hunter Biden is compromised.
Yeah.
I think every American knows that's a threat to national security. I think we're watching a crime spree in progress that Hunter Biden is orchestrating. And one has to wonder, like, what are the Chinese getting for the tens of millions of dollars that they're cutting the Biden family in on? What is the Chinese Communist Party getting as a result of cutting in 10% for the big guy? And I just happened to notice that, like, you guys canceled the China initiative that President Trump put in place where you focus talent on those things. You know, Jim Biden said to Tony Bobolini.
Now he's looking at the clock. Matt Gaetz is looking at the clock to see how much time he has. They cut him off right after 5 minutes. And we got a little bit of Andy Biggs. I'm going to play just about a minute of him, and then we'll wrap up with Gaetz. I want to make sure we hit the Barr article before we jump into the next segment, but here's a little bit more of this. Okay, so here, Matt Gaetz is just beating him up, just bah for 5 minutes, and then Andy Biggs comes out here, and let's see what he has to say.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Olsen, the Foreign Agents Registration Act, or FARA, which requires those representing foreign principals to register with DOJ, is a law administered by your office, the National Security Division. Is that fair?
Okay.
That is correct.
You are at the DOJ, FARA, Foreign Agents Registration Act. You run that, don't you?
Sir, yes.
I have behind me an email from 2016 during the Obama-Biden administration between Hunter Biden and Miguel Alemán, the son of a Mexican billionaire and grandson of the former Mexican president. The first lines say, we are...
So an email from Hunter Biden to a very prominent son of a billionaire in Mexico. And he puts it up on the screen. And he says, FARA, Foreign Agent Registration Act. Now, these things are hard to pay attention to because they just are reading from a script. They only get 5 minutes. But let's take a look at what is actually on this. This was sent February 24th, 1958 at 2016. Right? And so Biden is still in the vice presidency at that time. Yes, because 2016 election, November, Trump gets sworn in 2017. So the vice president is still in charge. Biden. He says, this is Hunter who's sending this email. It says, we are arriving late tonight on Air Force 2 to Mexico City. That's the vice president's plane. Hunter is on the plane. We will be there for Thursday. I'm attending a meeting with President N with Dad. Jeff is with me on lane, and we will be with us all day. Would love to see you, but you never respond. I'm really upset by it. You respond when it's something you need. You are the most generous person I know, but WTF? We have so many great things to do together. I want you at the plane when the VP lands with your mom and dad, and you completely ignore me. Poor Hunter. I've looked at what your family has done and want to follow the tradition that you always blah, blah, blah. Okay, and it says here highlighted, we have been talking about business deals and partnerships for 7 years. I have brought every single whatever behind his head, and every single person you ever asked me to bring to the effing White House, I have brought every single one of them, including some event, house, and the inauguration. I've delivered everything you've ever asked. Whoa. All right, so now that we know what that huge billboard says right behind Mr. Biggs, let's listen to him.
We're arriving late tonight on Air Force 2 to Mexico City. We'll be there for Thursday. I'm attending meeting with President N, meaning President Nieto, with Dad. Highlighted are the comments. We have been talking about business deals and partnerships for 7 years. I've brought every single person you've ever asked me to bring to the effing White House and the Vice President's house and the inauguration. I've delivered on every single thing you've ever asked. In this email, Hunter Biden acknowledges his attendance at a meeting between Mexican President Nieto and then Vice President Biden, discusses business deals and partnerships with a wealthy and politically connected Mexican family, references access provided to Mexican businessmen at the White House and Vice President's house, and states he had already delivered on every single thing you've ever asked.
Okay, so that sort of sounds like you might be engaging in foreign affairs, like with foreign agents kind of a thing, right? It's kind of I don't know.
Did this email or does this email raise concerns that Hunter Biden might have acted contrary to FARA since it appears he never registered to represent foreign principals?
Yeah, he never registered to represent these people. You know, he didn't disclose that he was working with the sons of Mexican billionaires to bring people to the White House, or why that might be. Didn't register, didn't do anything. Mr. Olsen, your office, you run the entire division, and your office manages this, right? Is this a problem for you, sir?
So I'm not familiar with the email that you're referring to.
Never saw it.
What I can tell you is that
never saw it.
It is a fundamental principle of the Justice Department and consistent with my almost 20-year career that we follow the facts and the law in every case.
You have to be able to see it before you can follow it here, buddy boy. And he says, no, I have no idea. Never saw that email. This is our these people are running things. Okay. So apparently the Congress knows about it, but the entire National Security Division, he's not even seen it. I want to be very clear about that, right? He's supposed to be under oath, or he's supposed to be testifying truthfully, right? It's a crime to lie to Congress. So I haven't seen it. Like you got to presume he's truthful about that. Then what the heck are they doing over there if he hasn't seen it?
With the email that you're referring to, what I can tell you is that it is a fundamental principle of the Justice Department and consistent with my almost 20-year career that we follow the facts and the law in every case without regard.
So you're not familiar with, but you're not familiar with this
ideology.
You're not familiar with this this email here.
I'm not.
We have next up, we're going to show you a picture of Vice President Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, Miguel Alemán, his father, and Carlos Slim, one of the richest men in the world, in 2015, while Joe Biden was vice president. This picture.
You don't remember that email? Okay. Get the photos. Put the photos up. Put them up behind me. Put them up.
Seems to conflict with President Biden's statement that he has never met with his son's business associates. Much of the information regarding Hunter Biden's foreign business dealings has come from the laptop that was abandoned by Hunter Biden and labeled by the media as misinformation, as well as by 51 former intelligence officers.
There's Hunter
in a
right there.
Weird letter dated October 19, 2020, which I will submit for the record. This week, we learned FBI whistleblowers have come forward and reported the FBI committed a widespread effort within the FBI to downplay or discredit negative information about Hunter Biden. Are you familiar with that reporting?
No, I'm not.
No, not even familiar with the reporting. Never even heard of it. So these guys who run national security and national intelligence, they don't even read the Washington Post or the New York Times, I guess, right? Because I think both those articles were in there. Actually, maybe they weren't in there. Maybe that's why he didn't know about them, because maybe they didn't publish them. But there is no intelligence, as you can see. So he has no idea what's going on. Now, finally, they passed it over to Matt Gaetz. And this is the last sort of a little bit here, but it's funny because they throw it his way again, right? He intercepts it again. So Matt Olsen, he's sitting there. He's like, all right, we're finally done with all of these loser Congress people that I don't care about. I work at the DOJ. I don't care what they say. Doesn't matter to me. It's irrelevant, is what he says. And then we get to our last question of the whole day. And this is a 4-hour hearing. So he's been sitting there fielding questions from a lot, most of these people are pretty low IQ relative to him. And so he's sort of having fun with it. But finally, the last question of the day, here it comes.
And speaking of the Biden family, since our last conversation, Mr. Olsen, a remarkable piece came out in Fox News entitled "Joe Biden Met with at least 14 of Hunter's business associates while vice president." Now, I know that you're not going to answer any questions about Hunter Biden with the ongoing investigation answer that you've given me previously, but is Joe Biden compromised?
So I should be clear, I'm not going to comment on that question because
he's the president.
I do not comment on any matter that may or may not be a matter of investigation. To the extent my comments previously were construed as confirming an investigation, that would be a mistake.
Well,
I'm neither confirming an investigation nor am I denying an investigation. I'm simply saying I am not commenting on any potential investigation.
Do you think the American people deserve to know whether or not the First Family is compromised?
No.
We speak through our filings in court at the Justice Department. We do not make allegations.
Not if it's a Democrat.
Because yesterday you all spoke through some leaks, right? I mean, recently you had Lester Holt interviewing Attorney General Garland, and Lester Holt asked him a lot of questions about whether or not President Trump was being investigated for January 6th. And just like you, A.G. Garland was, repeating the premises of prosecutorial pathways. And then lo and behold, the same day, the Department of Justice didn't speak through any filings. They went and leaked to the Washington Post that they're investigating President Trump. So it seems like...
Yeah, and we covered that, right? We covered that simultaneously. Both that weird, very convenient leak, same day. We caught that here. We said, that's strange. Merrick Garland was sitting there with NBC right as he's sitting there, sort of re-urging people, helping people understand that they're going to do everything they possibly can to prosecute Trump. The Washington Post also leaks it same time. And it's weird because this guy says he doesn't know anything about the news. He doesn't know anything about Hunter Biden hanging out with the Mexican Sons billionaire and bringing people to the White House. They don't know anything about it.
It's the Biden family. You all are all buttoned up with all of your propriety about not talking about these things. But when it's a Republican, when it's President Trump, you all love to go have your authorized leaks. Here's my question to you. Are you aware of an authorized leak to the Washington Post the same day as A.G. Garland sat down with Lester Holt?
General question.
No.
Obviously not.
And you think, as you sit here as the representative of the National Security Division before the House Judiciary Committee, that we aren't owed an answer as to whether or not the Biden family is compromised? You just don't think we deserve that?
We speak through our filings in court.
Again.
That's part of the rule of law. It's designed to protect the rights of anyone who may be accused, and it's designed to protect the integrity of the investigation. It's a central pillar of the Justice Department.
Central pillar of the Justice Department, and they conveniently roll it out in certain cases. They don't do it unilaterally equally across the board. It's only when it's convenient for them.
Violate all the time. I mean, even Mr. Horowitz, the Obama-appointed Inspector General, has given us report after report of where Department of Justice employees are off getting tickets to baseball games and fancy dinners with the reporters in exchange for giving them information. So can you at least acknowledge that you don't live up to that pillar with great precision?
We speak through what we say in court.
All right, so let's fast forward a little bit. Matt Gaetz, I think...
That's what you do.
And we take...
You leak them to try to smear people. By software that spies on Americans illegally and improperly. You won't tell me whether or not the legal wing of the Democratic Party was passing you information that was actually opposition research, then to be recategorized and repackaged as national security information. And you won't tell me whether the president of the United States is compromised when we know he's lying. I mean, like Joe Biden came out and said repeatedly that he never talked to Hunter Biden about business. And here you have 14 documented meetings. So, are you guys ever going to investigate this, or is it just going to be what Mr. Thibault said, what Mr. Grassley said, and that is that you guys are basically political shills? I mean, look, this is what Mr. Grassley said. If these allegations are true and accurate, the Justice Department and FBI are and have been institutionally corrupted to their very core, to the point at which the United States Congress and the American people will have no confidence in the equal application of the law. Can't you see that's what your behavior is continuing to just metastasize?
So we don't conduct our investigations in public. And
non-answers, zero answers out of him, and that's Matt Gaetz. Now, Matt Gaetz, at some point, I don't think I played the clip here today, at some point he says, right, he goes right after him, he says, look, you can sit there all you want and not answer questions. We're going to be in charge soon, and then it's going to be our turn to go get what we need. And, it's, I think, very appropriate. Now, Merrick Garland, of course, is the DOJ Attorney General. He's somebody who is going to make a decision about indicting Trump and all of those things, or about at least submitting, to a grand jury. But the former AG, Bill Barr, you remember him, this guy who was in Trump's office for some time and then left and then was sort of on bad terms. And, people don't really know what to do with Bill Barr. He sort of seems like he might be his own man, and then he sort of seems like he's unreliable or kind of flip-floppy. Who knows what it is? So you draw your own conclusions on it. But he is now out. He's saying this, according to the Federalist.com, Bill Barr's here. He says, intervening events, especially recent reports about FBI whistleblowers, which we just heard from Matt Gaetz, and the possible reach of the investigation now warrants adding additional protections of special counsel status to assure that key decisions are made independently without political favor, right? Hunter been under investigation since 2008. Issues related to foreign business practices, China, other troubled spots. There is a prosecution taking place out of Delaware, but, who knows where it goes. And I've long speculated that if there is a prosecution, it's going to be very, very limited, right? It'll be something about Hunter's gun crimes, you know, okay, slap on the wrist, he takes a plea deal, and then there's nothing really consequential for him in terms of penalties, but something that still sort of makes everybody say, oh, well, he got charged with the crime now, so leave him alone, you know, all right. Let him sell his COVID paintings. And, you know, we'll see where Hunter Biden goes, but that is the saga. Matt Gaetz blasting the DOJ, really going after Matt Olsen over there, and rightfully so, because it's the president's son, and there's a real big conflict here. You know, how do you, if you are the head of the Department of Justice, literally the president, the head of the DOJ, how do you have an unbiased, conflict-free investigation of your son by the DOJ, which you run? Obviously, there's going to be problems there. And so if you enjoyed that, if you want us to continue to cover it, of course, please do let me know in the comments. And I appreciate you subscribing and liking this video before you get out of here so that I can see you on the next one. All right, my friends, and we're going to jump into the next segment here. Let's do a little bit of a water break, shall we? Sometimes our mouths can turn into parchment, you know, and when I play the video clips, I get to rehydrate. But it's important, especially in Arizona. It's about 140 million degrees here. And we got to stay hydrated. So shout outs to Vientikis, who's modding down the fort. Curtis Bartles here. Nick Yak is in the chat, along with Mr. J-Bug is here. Mr. J-Bug says, cheers. Cheers to you. What are we drinking today? We've got bubbly, sparkling water, blackberry bubbly. Ooh, and it is a little bit bubbly. Zach Nichols says Coke is better. I mean, Coke is delicious. It is the best. Are we gonna? I'm not gonna do it. I was gonna ask a question, but I'm not gonna do it. You know what question that was gonna be. But we've got business to attend to, and so we're gonna get right into it. Now, Supreme Court Judge Assassin's, what is his name? Nicholas Roske. Nicholas Roske, the alleged Supreme Court assassin, is now filing a motion to suppress his statements. He is seeking to have his admissions that he was going to go and kill Judge Kavanaugh thrown out of court. He got a public defender, and today we're going to take a look at the actual motion to suppress, along with the indictment and the affidavit that was filed by the agents who went and actually brought him to justice. You can see that the original date of the violation was on June 8th, 2022. We do have the affidavit, but I also want to spend a little bit of time taking a look at what's happening with this motion to suppress. Of course, right here is Nicholas Roske, and they're now trying to build a defense. Most of this was sort of admitted when he called the police, but now we've got rulings from the judge and we've got orders that have been entered. We've got a trial date that has been scheduled. So let's start by taking a quick look at the actual complaint and the affidavit. Here is, I have these pulled up in this document. Here is the complaint. The criminal complaint was filed back on June 8th, 2022. And you'll notice this, it's got one charge: attempts to kidnap or murder, threaten to assault, kidnap a United States judge, here a United States Supreme Court judge, right? This is coming from Special Agent Ian Montijo. Judge signed off on this, and this is the actual criminal filing. This is the affidavit right now. This is only 3 pages. Typically, these can be a lot longer, but the special agent is submitting this. This is the probable cause statement saying that he's submitting a criminal complaint charging Nicholas Roske with one crime, violation of U.S. Code. He says, I'm an investigative or law enforcement officer in the United States, and I am empowered to conduct investigations. I've been employed by the FBI since January 2020, and I'm assigned to the Joint Terrorism Task Force. Spent 4 years in the Marine Corps. During my tenure with the FBI, I've gained knowledge in various forms of investigations, and I have become familiar with ways in which persons plan and conduct criminal activities, to include, but not limited to, activities like disguising operations and avoiding detection by law enforcement. So this agent, right, he's got some background here. He can spot out a sneak. Here, on June 8th, he says at 1:05 a.m., 2 U.S. deputy marshals saw an individual dressed in black clothing carrying a backpack and a suitcase. They saw him get out of a taxi cab that stopped in front of a Montgomery County, Maryland residence of the current United States Supreme Court judge. Individual looked at the 2 deputy marshals. They were standing next to their parked vehicle, and he walked down the street. Shortly thereafter that, Montgomery County Communications Center, so the 911 center, fielded a call from an individual named Nicholas John Roske. Roske informed the call taker that he was having suicidal thoughts and he had a firearm in his suitcase. Roske also told the call taker he came from California to kill a specific U.S. Supreme Court judge. Dispatch noted where he was and where he was approaching, and he was taken into custody without incident. Officer seized a backpack and a suitcase. Inventory search of the suitcase revealed a black tactical chest rig, tactical knife, Glock 17 pistol, 2 magazines, ammo, crowbar, pistol, duct tape, hiking boots, and so on. He was transported to the jail, signed a written waiver saying he understood his rights and agreed to speak with the agents. You see that? Speaking with the agents. And he waived those rights. So we'll see what happens there. He told the detective that he was upset about the leak of a recent Supreme Court draft decision regarding the right to abortion, as well as a recent shooting in Uvalde, Texas. Roske indicated he believed the justice intended to kill would side with the Second Amendment decisions and would loosen gun control laws. Roske stated he began thinking about how to give his life a purpose and decided he would kill the Supreme Court justice. He got his address on the internet, and he further indicated that he purchased a Glock pistol for the purpose of breaking in and killing the judge himself. Second interview was conducted at 9:54 a.m. on 2022. Again, advised him of his rights. He waived those rights in writing. Now, he's filing a motion to suppress, so it's not looking good. Let's take a look here in a minute. Conclusion, based on the foregoing, there's probable cause. He submitted that, and of course, he was arrested. So the indictment looks like this. This was actually submitted to a grand jury. They give us a little bit more details on what was found in his backpack. Glock 17 firearm, serial number there. 2 Glock mags, 10 rounds each, approximately 17 rounds, 9mm ammo, black speed loader, Streamlight light and taser, serial number. We've got a black pair of hardened tactical gloves, band holster, tactical chest rig, black face mask, locking pick, and burglary tools, right? All of this stuff. He's got a monocular and others. Substitute assets you see here, all submitted, and of course he got arrested. Now, several different interesting things happening here. So the first point on this, okay, you know, you're being prosecuted, and there are several different ways to get a lawyer, and one of those is to get a public defender. Oftentimes people can't afford lawyers. In fact, most of the time people can't afford lawyers, and they get public defenders. And we've covered a lot of ground on this channel about, well, covering a lot of different criminal trials, and we've seen some of the most impressive defenses ever, right? We saw what Ghislaine Maxwell, for example, was able to put together, right? We saw what Michael Sussman was able to put together. Very impressive defenses. And now you can see sort of a compare and contrast version of this, okay? We can see that there were several different motions filed, but this first one is a motion to suppress his statements. And look at the length of this motion. It's only 2 pages. Now, it's still preliminary, right? So this may be a secondary motion. And this is one that kind of is probably being filed early on in the case. And so maybe there's a subsequent one coming. I don't know. But it's only 2 pages. It's not a whole lot here. It says Nicholas Roske allegedly is here, and now he moves to suppress any and all statements, admissions, and confessions, right? All of those things that he just talked about when he waived his rights, he wants to suppress all of that. Whether oral, written, or otherwise, the government, whatever they want to use at trial, we want to throw it out. Discovery, they say, indicates that he made statements to law enforcement, and they want to have this all thrown out. Why? Statements made were not voluntary, is what they're saying. He's entitled to a hearing to determine the voluntariness of those statements, right? Whether he's mentally incompetent or whether he was sort of under duress or coercion. Maybe there was. We don't know. The FBI agent just said he just wrote on that document. Like, oh, yeah, I'm just going to write on it, and I just signed off on it. But the defense is going to challenge that. And so they've got this sort of, initial motion that's being filed, but it's pretty short. If at such hearing the government fails to establish that the statements were not obtained in violations of its privilege, nor his right, and they were not otherwise voluntary, then they should be suppressed. So not a whole lot of facts in this case, right? Kind of just a blanket motion that was filed by James White, federal public defender out of the District of Maryland. And they now say that anything that was used against him be suppressed. So I'm going to guess that this doesn't go anywhere very far, but that's that. Now, something else interesting that happened is they are also agreeing to sort of extend the speedy trial length. And this was interesting. I know this is kind of in the weeds for some of us here, but in the United States, we have a right to a speedy trial, right? You have a right. You don't want to turn into Edmond Dantes from the Count of Monte Cristo and be thrown in the Chateau Reef indefinitely until there's a change of power, until you tunnel out of the cell. So it's a thing where you want to make sure that you keep track of time. It's sort of like a game of chess in criminal law. You get to make a move and then you hit the clock. On the other side makes a move and they hit the clock. And if you run out of time, well, the case gets dismissed because you've got a right to a speedy trial. And so they're fighting about some of that now. And they're basically agreeing that they're going to waive a bunch of time now. So you'll take a look now. The prosecutor actually agreed with this. Eric Barron, the U.S. attorney, has sort of gotten with the defense. And they've said, we now request with no objection from the defense to waive a big bucket of that time out from the case. So in other words, it's not going to be held accountable against Nicholas Roske, and they're going to have more time to prosecute the entire case. The judge read that and granted it. You can see Peter Massetti here granted that. And then we've got a trial order. So we've got a couple deadlines coming up, and that's going to really be it for sort of the update. Here, August 23rd, the trial date is gone, so that's been deleted from the calendar. August 17th, we've got a pretrial conference vacated, and then we're going to be reconvening on September 6th for the actual pretrial deadline. And so I'm already seeing right where this is going. Jason on Blast says, hopefully this won't become a political trial during election time, sort of reading the writing on the walls, right? We're going to be talking about abortion and all sorts of stuff as the election nears. And it's pretrial motions now, September 6th. And then the elections will be coming up right around the corner. And we'll see, how this all unfolds as the prosecution continues. But we don't hear a lot of it from a lot of people in the media. We do hear a lot of the litany about, domestic violent extremists, but they're in one category of people. They're not in the other category of people who are screaming to go protest at judges' houses, which is a crime, or who are disclosing their addresses all over the internet. Don't see much of that. Now, there's another story that came out from Fox News. They give us a little bit more detail, saying that the FBI actually executed a search warrant for this guy's residence, and there was some pretty chilling online postings on here. Here's what it says. A newly unveiled FBI search warrant shows the man accused of attempting to assassinate Judge Kavanaugh meticulously planned the alleged plot. FBI search warrant says that he searched and Googled, quote, how to be stealthy, which is something that you'd want to search for, right? If you're going to go assassinate somebody, how to do it in a stealthy fashion. Also Googled assassin skills. Maybe a book on Amazon. I don't know. Most effective place to stab someone in the weeks leading up to the planned attack. And, I don't really know what the answer to that question is. I probably could guess, but, don't Google it. Here, I'm going to stop. He told another internet user in an online conversation, he says, I'm going to stop Roe versus Wade from being overturned. The other user said, what are you trying to do? He said, remove some people from the Supreme Court. The person Roske speaking with said, 2 dead judges ain't going to do nothing. The whole government is F. You got to kill them all. Roske said, yeah, but I could at least get one, which could change the votes for the decade to come. And I'm shooting for all 3. What? I'm shooting for all 3. All major decisions of the past 10 years have been along party lines. So if there are more liberal judges than conservatives, they're going to have power. The newly released document also says that Roske was planning on targeting at least 2 other members of the court, but did not identify them. He used an email address called HelenKiller1969 at gmail.com. Said that he had a plan to kill the justice and so on, right? And so obviously, right, look, I don't think he's a well individual, and I hope that he does get well. There are a lot of unwell people. And I do hope he gets well. But the point is, we'll see if the government creates a committee to go and investigate all of the lefties. I doubt it. But if you did enjoy that, I would appreciate it if you subscribed, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right, my friends, and that was segment number 2. And we've got one more segment left. And JC says, Rob, I think what you meant is Chateau d'If. What did I say? Reef? Did I say reef? Chateau d'If. Thank you for the correction. I don't know what I said, but that is right? It's not a reef, it's a jail. So it's Jason on Black. That's from JC the Music Man. Zach Nichols says, did that kid not have an Xbox? I don't know. Well, the point is, we've got one more segment left, and this is the big one. This is the big meatball. This is a big, spicy, juicy one. And a little bit of a content warning out there, so if, 3 girlies is listening or something, maybe, we're talking about a person passing away, and it's not good. But as we do get into this, there is no gore. I basically got rid of it all. So we're going to be able to unpack this, I think, in a PG-13 manner that is not going to get the YouTube censors triggered. Modesto. The Modesto. Oh, gosh. Did I say Modesto? That's a whole different crime. The Modesto Police Department involved in a shooting of a man named Paul Chavez Jr. You can see the scene right here. These 2 officers, we'll learn a little bit more about them. But Mr. Chavez is now dead. He was shot twice by this officer right here. You can see him on the right. He's got a gun. This other guy had a taser. And Mr. Chavez was actually not even phased by the taser. He was shot by the taser. And if you notice closely, we'll get into this, but there's a little something in his hand, an object right around his right hand that may have prompted the shooting. And we posted about this over on our community at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And you can see there's just a whole slew of thoughts breaking down this shooting. And there's, always additional kind of sides to the story when you're typically analyzing this. The police put out their version of events pretty rapidly. We're going to go through that here from Brandon Gillespie. He is the police chief over from Modesto. And he gave us the report, and they posted this on their YouTube channel. And I clipped it, and I edited out the death. So if you want to watch the full thing, go check it out over at Modesto on their YouTube channel. But these are the 2 officers who we are going to take a look at. Officer Sam Muncie. He was somebody who's been involved there for 9 years. We also have Officer Sergio Valencia, 4-year veteran, as they call themselves, over there. But Brandon Gillespie is going to give us an update on what happened from their perspective. Paul Chavez Jr. and his family, he is deceased now, they've hired an attorney. And the attorney released a very interesting video from this angle, right? This is the moment you can see him flinching right before the gun cracks off. And we're going to, sort of break this down bit by bit and take a look at how it unfolds. Now, the video came out. Paul Chavez Jr. is, no longer with us, but his attorney has assembled some photos and some background information for him. And then we'll take a look at the comments thread and your comments, unpacking and see what you think about this. And there's a lot of ways to analyze these things, right? And the different questions matter, right? Is this a justified shooting? Is this a good shoot, right? Is a different question. Is this a criminal charge? Is a whole different question, right? Should this officer be prosecuted? And there's a lot of things to unpack. And so we'll get there in a minute. But first, let's jump in and see what the police department had to say about it. Here is the censored version of the entire ordeal. They published this on their YouTube channel. And so let's listen through this.
Hello, my name is Brandon Gillespie, the police chief of the Modesto.
All right, so he's going to tell us more about it. We're going to actually get to the 911 call. Here it is. July 14th.
I'm calling right now. Yeah, I need you to have Olsen trot away to the drunk man at my door, threatening my life. Go ahead.
Okay.
Hey, who that shut my door again? Who am I sitting there? I'm getting my gun. This is ridiculous. If he comes in my door, do I get a chance to shoot him?
Sir, I'm not going to I'm going to do a call for I need you to answer my question. Your address is in Trotter Way in Modesto with across of Orangeburg?
Yes.
Do you know this male?
Yes.
Okay.
I picked him up yesterday from my house.
Okay, how do you know him?
He's my son-in-law.
Son-in-law, okay? So a son-in-law and a father-in-law are now dealing with this. So it's not a random person. Father-in-law must know son-in-law, must know sort of what's going on here. Picked him up yesterday, and he's just sort of drunk outside of his house.
He's drunk.
What's his first name?
Paul Chavez.
Can you spell his first name for me?
Paul, P-A-U-L.
How do you spell his last name?
C-H-A-V-E, or E-V. C-H-A-V-E-V.
Chavez?
Yep.
What's his date of birth?
I don't know.
Hello?
White.
What color shirt is he wearing?
No shirt.
What color pants?
Blue jeans.
Does he have any weapons?
No.
No weapons. Okay, so there you go. Does he have any weapons? No. No, he doesn't have any weapons.
Drinking?
Yeah. And he's ripping my screen door off.
Ripping my door off.
Okay, so he's ripping the screen door off?
Screen door off, yes. He's doing property to my house. Or property damage to my house, yes.
Okay. And is he just damaging the windows, or is he damaging?
Yeah. He's ripping the screen door off. And my wife went to go get pizza and she's on her way back, so I'm going to have to go out there and deal with him. So you better hurry up.
Better hurry up.
Wife, I'm going to shoot him.
I'm going to shoot him, right? And so he's sort of itching to shoot this guy.
What's your first name? What's your last name? Can you spell that for me?
Take a minute.
And what's your date of birth? Okay, and are your doors locked?
Yes. But my wife's coming up. Pizza.
Okay, can you tell your wife not to drive in the driveway just so you avoid confrontation until law enforcement gets there?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to enter a call for service, okay? Hello, are you still there?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to get a call entered for service, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, second 911 call comes in from another neighbor.
911? Yeah, I called 911 from Trotterway.
A different person.
Guy. He has a hitch now, and he moved over to my neighbor's house.
So he has a hitch now. Okay, so the first guy says no weapon. Second guy says there's a hitch in his hand, right? And a hitch on the back of a truck, you know, you pull the hitch out of the back of a truck. You ever pick up one of those things, right? They are serious pieces of metal. And so you can hurt some people with that, certainly.
And he's in their yard, so he has a weapon.
He has a what?
A hitch from the truck with the ball on it.
He's still in the front yard?
For towing. He's in the neighbor's front yard now.
Did he say he had a weapon?
So he has a weapon.
So he has a weapon. See that? So he has a weapon. He has a what?
House, and he's in their yard, so he has a weapon.
There it is.
He has a what?
A hitch from the truck with the ball on it.
He's still in the front yard?
For towing. He's in the neighbor's front yard now. He's looking for a fight.
So he confirms to the police there's a weapon. The weapon is a hitch.
Do you know the address of your neighbor?
Towards Orangeburg. It's the second house in from Orangeburg.
Okay.
On the right. Second house on the right.
All right, they should be there soon. They were down the street, okay?
Okay, so the police are right down the street. One guy says he's got a weapon. The other guy says not a weapon, but they both confirm it's a trailer
Based on
hitch.
the information the caller provides.
So then he comes and he tells us, you know, what they thought, and then we get the actual body camera. So here is Axon body camera 3. And let's see where this one goes. So he's fumbling around with, you know, whatever. Fast forward.
Negative.
Modesto, we're UTL on the street. I'm going to go to RB's house. He's sitting in a car?
Oh, that's in the car. Tell him to come home. Yeah, no, he's laying in the gas next to the gray car. Tell him wait for the to come home.
All right, so it's going to pick up pretty quickly right here.
No. Says he's in the grass by that car. I think your husband wants you to go home.
Okay, so that's her husband. Okay, so husband is the 911 caller, and she's coming home with pizzas right now. So that is probably, that was father-in-law. Was it brother-in-law? Did he say father-in-law? So this is probably a blood relative, right?
Yeah, I just parked here.
Go ahead. There he is.
Okay, so.
Hi, sir. Hey, don't move, okay?
There he is.
Hey,
okay, there he is. He just got up off the ground, right? He's sort of sitting back there on the ground. And this officer comes up, and he's got his gun drawn, right? This is the officer that has his gun drawn. It's 1750-47. And you see the gun is now coming out, and the guy just stands right up, right? He's sitting on the ground over there, just sort of not doing anything.
Hey, put that down. Put that down. Barry 73-1 at gunpoint, uncooperative.
Put that down. Gunpoint, uncooperative is what he says. Okay, gunpoint, uncooperative.
Put that down, or you're gonna get tased.
Now he's got a taser out, and so it's still pretty 1750-54.
You're gonna get tased. Put it down, man. Put it down.
Okay, it's
Put
the
it
hitch.
down. Put it down.
Now it's the hitch. Now right there, you just saw him. He's not been shot. This is the taser that just went out. Okay, so he just got hit with the taser, and he is not stopping. Son-in-law is what people are telling me. Son-in-law. So is that his mother? Was that his mother? Who was just bringing the pizzas home? So here is now. Okay, we've got about 14 seconds or 15, whatever, how many seconds left in this thing. And it's going to drop before he gets hit with the bullets. But this is, you're going to see, okay, the guy with the gun, this is how far away we are right now. And you can sort of measure how whatever length that is, whatever the distance is between, this officer, the body camera, and this guy. He's going to be shot here in a minute. Watch. Okay, now he just pulled the prongs out of him. Right, he just pulled the prongs right out.
Put it down, man. Put it down. Put it down. Put it down.
Now here it comes.
Put it down. Put it down. Put it down. Down.
Okay.
Get on the ground. Get on.
Now he shot him right there. Yeah, now that happened.
On the ground now.
Okay. Right there. So let's watch that one more time. And you can see he's walking forward. And pulls the taser out.
Put it down.
And he's about to get shot right now. Okay, he's sort of turning. He's turning that right shoulder to sort of approach the police. You can't see his hand from that police, right? That police op. You can't see his right hand right there. So you don't really know, even from the body cam, you can't see it, right? I mean, it's really sort of a question about what's in his hand. And there you see it, right? You see this little swing come out. What is that? He can see it now. Is that a gun? Is that a taser? Is that a weapon? Don't know.
Put it down.
And now, right, he's still sort of walking forward a second later.
Put it down.
And he's taking another step. And then there's that. Right now is like the bullet is going off like a split second right after this, okay? So he's just about to be shot. You can see exactly how far away they are. He does turn, right? He is sort of turning and approaching the police, and a taser just didn't take him. And he does have what looks like a hitch, but here it ends.
Down! Get on.
Okay, so now he's down.
Get on the ground!
And the rest of the video, if you want to watch the full thing, is somebody dying. Okay, it's just him, dying. So it's terrible. Now, that video came out. You can watch the rest of it, and the police are going to explain exactly, why this was justified. And I want to hear from you. And, you'll know what my position is, obviously. I'm a defense attorney, okay? I don't think that this was appropriate. But here, let's take a look now, right, at what the police or what the lawyers for Mr. Chavez, who is the guy who was shot, what they released. So they actually showed you a couple of those clips. But right, this is this gentleman, Paul Chavez Jr. He's got a family, and he's dead now. So not ideal. But the family posted this video, and they actually released this one. And I also stopped this one before it gets really bad. But this is a really bad video. Okay, now if you really want to see something that's incredible, he gets shot and he doesn't fall down. Okay. He actually looks like if the bullet came out of his lung, right out of his chest cavity, he picks up his blood that's coming out of his chest and basically looks at it before he realizes what's happened. And then he falls down to the ground. But watch, look how far away this officer is from this angle. It looks further than that body camera looked, didn't it? Right. That's pretty far. So like watch, well, we're going to watch this. And again, it's going to drop off right before the bad moment. And there it is. Okay, so see how far he is? The gun is going off right then. And he's turning, and the bullet, I'm going to guess, sort of enters the back, and then it comes out the front of him. So that officer took 2 shots right there from that distance, right? I mean, it's you know, say whatever that distance is, whatever it is. I don't know, but he actually looks at the blood pooling out of his chest. It's really pretty gruesome. So we're going to get to your comments here in a minute. Here is one bit of relevant law over from California. You can see Assembly Bill 1506. This was passed, signed into law back in 2020. And the reason I was looking at this was because I was trying to find a definition for a weapon, or what, you know, is a trailer hitch a weapon? You know, how do they, obviously it's not, right? It's a trailer hitch, but how do they classify a weapon? What type of language do they use? Like, do they say, you know, a blunt heavy object is a weapon? Well, that's a blunt heavy object, so that qualifies, right? Here it tells us, for the purposes of this section, deadly weapon includes, but not limited to, any loaded weapon which a shot can produce death, may be discharged, a switchblade, a pilum ballistic knife, metal knuckle knife, dagger, billy, blackjack, plastic knuckles, or metal knuckles. So it doesn't sound like a trailer hitch would qualify under that. Like, it's not a knife, right? These are knives. It's not a dagger. It's not plastic knuckles or metal knuckles. It's not a loaded weapon in any way. So I just don't see it under that definition, to be honest. Right? Doesn't say anything. Yeah. Doesn't say anything about a hitch or anything like that. So I just don't see anything in there. Now, what's supposed to happen is when there is an unarmed civilian who doesn't have a deadly weapon who's shot, there's supposed to be a whole process. Prosecutor is supposed to do this investigation and get a statement of facts, a detailed analysis, and a conclusion, and all of that stuff. And if criminal charges against the officer are warranted, initiate and prosecute the officer, right? Like, there's a bill in California that says you got to do this stuff. And you know, we'll see, right? We'll see if they do anything. This says a prosecutor shall investigate if it is an unarmed civilian, in the death of an unarmed civilian. So I think that they have to investigate it, I guess, is my takeaway on this. I think, because it doesn't qualify as a deadly weapon. So I think this officer is going to get a full-throated investigation from a state prosecutor, at least in accordance with this statute. We'll see. Now, the real question, of course, is what do you think about this? And so now is the time to jump into your questions and your comments and your thoughts on all of this. Use of force, officer-involved shooting. And I know there are a ton of comments today, so we're probably not going to get to all the comments today, and I apologize for that. But let's start here with this thread, where we've got a couple comments here from former LEO. And let's see here. Former LEO is sharing a video. He says, most people notice that I didn't draw any hard conclusions because there are variables that only officers who can respond are familiar with. Says the incident unfolded rapidly. All of the decision-making was condensed. Said Mike Tyson says everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face. Says I lived in East Madera County where the sheriff's department has 4 cars and responsible for 50 square miles. I just wonder if the people that post their firm opinions have ever taken a shoot, don't shoot course of training. It's truly eye-opening. It looks simple from the outside looking in. Thanks for putting up with me. Yeah, you know, it's a good point, former LEO. It is a hard thing to do. When I got my CCW permit in Arizona, I got my CCW permit, and I was at a facility where they give you one of those trainings, and it's different than, like, you know, the Aliens space shooter games where you just shoot off into, you know, a video game, right? The ones that are sort of kind of real simulations are really difficult. So it's, you have a little grace in these situations. Samuel Adams says the police wonder why people don't trust them. That's an outrageous disregard for life. Being stupid shouldn't be a death sentence. That's from Samuel Adams. And there's a lot of spice in this thread. Hunter's crack dealer, who knows something about this, says he was not just simply drunk. People don't shrug off being tased and shot twice like that. Yeah, no doubt about that, right? He was obviously on something. Lot of something. And one Florida man says, I agree, wondering what someone who has more training would do. Either someone who has psychological training like a law enforcement officer or mental health experience, what would they do? Thunder 7 says, I'm sick of the experts. We've had enough of those during the pandemic. I'm not a cop, never have been a cop, but I can see what went on. We all can. We all have an opinion. I think cop haters are going to hate no matter what. John McGarvey says, very sad. I'm not qualified to give an opinion on the legality of this. The one take I'm not seeing in the comments, though, is the fact that a Reese hitch can be thrown with a lethal force for, say, 20 feet. No doubt about that. Right? Those things are serious business. Former LEO says, in viewing the available videos, it appears as though the officers gave commands which were ignored. They utilized non-lethal force twice with no effect. Suspect was approaching the officers, and a closing distance was available for the officers to react while holding a trailer hitch, which is a weapon capable of grievous bodily injury. From the angle that I saw, unable to determine the distance between the officers, but if within 5 to 7 yards, that would have escalated it. At that point, the only non-lethal option to the officers was a possible baton, OC spray, or physical ability to retreat and give themselves a larger safety zone. I was never taser certified because the Board of Supervisors refused to pay for them. Non-lethal force was mace, a 26-inch baton, and our own physical abilities. The section that Rob cited to unarmed civilians defined them as someone not armed with a deadly weapon. I believe this might have been handled differently, but I wasn't there and they were retreating. Could have been a better plan if there were no other possible victims. I don't know what the Modesto Police Department has in place as far as rules go, but I tend to lean in the direction of legal. That's from former LEO, leaning towards legal. As a side note, but he says as far as the department goes, yeah, it's probably going to be a coin flip. Yeah. As a side note, all SFPD officers worked with a partner. We had steady partners for the most part. My partner knew how I was going to respond before I did. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, and that's a great one from former LEO. And you can see there's a lot of comments in here. I wanted to see if we had a Miss Lucky in the house or a Sergeant Bob, because here's Grouchy Old Cat Lady. My first thoughts, I can understand this. Why don't they use an animal capture net? Yeah, I know. It sort of feels like you might want to just go tackle that individual and respond differently, but they're police officers and there's reasons you don't do that stuff, right? It sort of feels like, oh, well, just go tackle them or something. And some of that stuff sounds easier said than done. And I don't think, unfortunately, we've got a Sergeant Bob in the house, which is a bummer. But if we do get Sergeant Bob later on in the day, we'll, let me check the other channel, the other thread, because he may be there. But, these are very interesting ordeals, and you can split these, I think, multiple different ways. Here it is. Sergeant Bob is over here on this channel. TOS Forever on the comments thread says, phenomenal Friday to everyone. Vientica says that bad link nonsense is definitely something to scoff at. Jason on Blast says, the Democrats and the deep state rhinos and their constant lies are getting beyond old. I literally already have a headache for unknowingly clenching my teeth. My neck is more stiff with stress than pencil neck. That's pretty bad, Jason. Miss Lucky says, why on earth are they so intent in covering for sleazy Hunter? He's not worth it. Let's see what else we've got. We had another one come in from Rational Gaze. He says, the things that bugs me about the police shooting, in the front window of that house, it was directly in the line of fire. If the officer had missed, he could have easily hit somebody in the house. Lynette says, the GOP has to be aggressive. We have no voice in intel, bureaucracy, government, media, education, big tech, big pharma, big medicine, and so on. It's a good point, Lynette. What else are you going to do? Former LEO says, is it possible when the Republicans assume control of the House that they defund the FBI and start over? They could. Sergeant Bob says, Miss Biden's actions are the poster child for the entitlement mentality of the swamp. Jeremy writes, special counsel investigations have proven to be useless. Justice cannot be served and the laws will never be upheld as long as DC is in charge. This C. Rose, you son of a, I knew it was going to be from you. I knew it. He says, hey, Rob, don't you think Congress will do absolutely nothing about the DOJ's partisanship? Yes, I think so. Yeah, Congress will do nothing. He says, P.S. It's also always got to be tough, but I think the officer pulled the trigger a little too quickly on Chavez. I think so, too. Of course, California legislature went with plain objects rather than how the object is used to define deadly weapons. That's true. They did. Yeah, we just read that. Yeah. And he says, PPS, Pepsi is better than Coke. This son of a gun, you know. C-Rose, it's you, right? You're the T1 fan, aren't you, right? Terminator 1 is better than Terminator 2. Ugh! You're just sitting there watching your less quality movies with your Pepsi. Ugh, typical. Figures. Not even a surprise. Unbelievable. Look, the T1 comment is a bannable offense. The Pepsi being better than Coke comment, that's like another bannable offense. You're 2 for 2, buddy. You better take it easy over there. Jeff Rook says, how often do you see judges essentially rule, okay, yes, you broke the law, but you tried to obey it, so you're free to go. Actually it's not that infrequent, to be honest. Okay. Like I've seen this many times. I've actually had this happen many times. I'll never forget this one trial I was doing. Right? We have criminal speeding in Arizona. Okay. Criminal speeding is a, crime in Arizona. It's not like a speeding ticket. So it's a full trial and you have officers come in and prosecutors and the whole thing, right? The whole thing. It's really ridiculous. So I was doing this trial with this officer and brought my client in. I have him testify about everything. And he was speeding, no doubt about it. And it was a criminal speed. But his story, right, was that his dog was sick in his car. His dog was sick. And so I said, look, that's the only thing we've got here, man. Like your dog's sick and we're going to the vet. Okay, that's the story. And we go in. And this is a very competent court in Arizona, so they have all their ducks in a row on this particular type of case. So we go into this judge and we present this whole case about exigent, about urgencies and requirements. He's sort of acting under duress and all of these ridiculous arguments. And this judge comes out and he goes, "Well, I think that you probably were speeding, but your dog is very important, and I understand how important dogs are. And, if a situation like that comes up, I can understand that. And so I'm going to find you not guilty." And we looked at each other. We went, what? What? Both of us. But it's one of those things because the speed was quite high. It was one of those things that you're just going, wow, holy moly, and this does happen from time to time. Sometimes if you've got nothing else, like in your bag of tricks, you just go in front of the court and you just throw yourself at the mercy of the court. Client was aware. He knew what we were doing. He knew it was a long shot. There were no options. There was no plea deal. They weren't going to dismiss the case or anything. And we went in and it was a not guilty verdict. All because we sort of threw ourselves at the mercy of the court and made this big story. I mean, it was a true story. We weren't lying. But it's about his dog, Judge. He's not a crazed, speeding lunatic. It's about his dog, man. And you would do the same thing if your dog was going through that. And the judge was like, yeah, that's true. I think so. He says, I made a long post on this, but I have a friend who, despite them and myself spending thousands of dollars and countless hours, we haven't been able to get a house they inherited up to local codes. They lost 2 family members, inherited basically a garbage dump and a drug den. I always ask in some form about this topic, but I'm so frustrated with the legal system that punishes people, not because they attempt to break laws, but because they don't know the speed limit, because they don't have the means to abide by the law. Yeah, that's a different thing. Now, sometimes judges will show leniency, right, when you sort of pull at their heartstrings, but there are also other provisions like Arizona, forget what year it was, but some time ago they passed a law that said, if you can't pay your fines, then we're not going to suspend your license. Yeah, that was the one they passed. They also passed another one that was something like you can work off your fees, right? So you can actually do some work and work down your fees rather than punish you for not being able to pay. And I think that is appropriate, right? We shouldn't be punishing people because they're poor. Thunder7 says, Rob, I judge a person by the actions, not the words. Barr appointed Durham as special counsel, indicating he didn't want him fired, and now he's demanding that Garland appoint a special counsel to Biden. He says, in fact, he's gone out on a limb that only a Supreme Court would get to the bottom, or only a special counsel would get to the bottom of the shenanigans. Only a good guy would want those investigations, and therefore, Thunder7 sounds like Team Trump. I appreciate that, Thunder. Let's jump over to YouTube and see what came in earlier today. Bear Ashby says, hello and thanks. Well, thank you, Bear. I appreciate that. Glad you're here. He says, these hearings accomplish nothing but tax money, talking about Matt Gaetz and Matthew Olsen over from the DOJ. That's true. Well, look, we're going to spend a lot of tax money anyways. The best thing that we can get out of it is Matt Gaetz beating up the DOJ, I guess. Adam K says, your mod, Vienticus Prime, called me out for cursing, saying, swear jar, making good on my swear words. Well, thank you for that, Adam. You know, we try to keep it a family show on here and try to keep the swears to a minimum. You know, sometimes I'll slip out a B word or sometimes an S word. I try to keep it limited because it's a family show. We like to have dinner table manners here. You know, it's sort of like if you brought if you went, how about this? If you went over to your girlfriend's family's dinner first time, dinner table manners, open the doors. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Yes. Stand up, sit down. Can I help with the dishes? Okay. If we all act accordingly, we can have a nice civil society. Don't you think? That's what we're trying to accomplish here. Thank you for participating in it, Adam K. Bear Ashby says, that guy is monkeys. See, speak, hear, no evil. Blind. That is from Bear Ashby. Jonathan Harlan sending in a super chat with no question. Thank you, Jonathan Harlan. I appreciate that very much. Very generous of you. Hell Radio Lives says, so admission takebacks aren't allowed? You can't do that? Talking about Nicholas Roske, who is, allegedly the assassin of Judge Kavanaugh, wants to take back his admissions. You know, he said, yes, I tried to do all of this stuff. He's like, did you press the send button on those yet? Because I'd like to put that in the shredder, which would have been a better idea. Bear Ashby says, bull, Rob, the dude was warned. Enough. Bear Ashby's like, yeah, I just shot him from across the street. Are you kidding me? Don't you move. Don't you move over there. I'm just teasing you, Bear. It's a close call. I agree with this one. I think it's a close call. It's a tough one. You know, it's close. I think, I wouldn't have shot if I were that officer. The next question would be, would I prosecute that officer? Good question. There'd have to be a whole investigation for that. MR says, swear jar, great crim law talk, my future area too. Well, very cool, MR. I wonder what you're going into. I wonder if you're an officer, if you're going into criminal defense or maybe court work or there's all sorts of work. I mean, it is a big area. And we're grateful to have you. Welcome over to soon to welcome you to the area. Zach Nichols says, how in the HE double hockey sticks did Roske buy all of those individual items and not trigger any flags anywhere? Did he? I don't think he had that much stuff. I mean, it really wasn't that. It was 9s and some ammo. Not that bad. Thunder7 says, you discussed this yesterday, Rob, but I like the way Charlie tweeted it. In case you weren't aware, the Biden regime is attempting to swap Victor Bout, a Russian prisoner convicted of conspiracy to kill citizens and delivery of anti-aircraft missiles and providing aid to a terrorist organization for a WNBA player who hates America. Yeah, that is a more succinct and spicy way to handle that topic, certainly. Grouchy Old Cat Lady says, Nicholas is a great candidate for some mental health counseling. I agree. At least he knows right from wrong and he admitted it and called to prevent acting upon his thoughts. He just might be one of those people who did something stupid. I agree with that. Regardless of who he's thinking about killing, I'm saying this because when the chips were down, he changed his mind and took steps to prevent it. I agree with that completely. Look, I think that Nicholas, is somebody who is going through something very traumatic internally, almost made a catastrophic decision and didn't, right? And we should incentivize people to do that, right? What if all the school shooters did that? Rumble Rants came in from Larry number 1. Thank you, Vienticus. I did see that. I was probably going to forget about it. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah, Larry 1 says, Bill Barr is a stealth bomber. Thinks Kayfabe big time wrestling. Think Kayfabe big time wrestling. Bill Barr is a stealth bomber. I see what you're saying. So he's kind of playing both sides on that. That was from Larry 1. That's a pretty good. Is that how you say Kayfabe? Is that? I don't even know what that word is. Let me look that up 1 second here before I start ranting and opining on this. It's in professional wrestling. Okay, here's what it is. Kayfabe, a noun. Portrayal of staged events within the industry is real or true. There it is, right? Gimmicks, suspension of disbelief, all of that stuff. Okay. Yeah, there it is. And that came over from Larry 1 on Rumble, on our Rumble rants. And let's see who's over there. Dog Digger's over there. Anything's in the house. Nexit 2020. Shout out to Nexit 2020. And Lucius J, you're over there as well. Sergeant Bob says, most protocol requires lethal cover officer when another officer has his taser. This is in case the taser does not work. So it sounds like they were in proper protocol over there. He also says, no weapons response to the call taker question is only at that point in time. This can change by the time the officers confront the guy. Ed J says, Rob, so my vote, keep covering the Hunter Biden story and the DOJ FBI corruption. There may be some great trial content for you come January. ATF is another corrupt group. Fun to come. These people would make me laugh if they had not done so much damage to the lives of innocent people. They have huge egos and they think they are smarter than us all. Well, they did go to Oxford. Hello. Ed, they're, Ivy Leaguers. But really, they are nothing but goons doing the dirty work of corrupt politicians. I want your thoughts on Georgetown U getting a petition together and running Clarence Thomas away from teaching a class he's taught for years. I would think that as a student in law school, I would jump at the opportunity to take a class from a judge like Thomas, like him, which I do or not. I'm in my late 60s and can confirm that the quality of lawyers has been declining rapidly for years with increase of subverted and politicized courts. What does this say about the future of the legal profession and the law in general with the lack of a well-rounded education most new lawyers will have? If we are not woke left, support late abortions and hate Trump, we have no defense, no say, and are automatically guilty. Look, I don't know what's going on in the law schools. I do have a sneaking suspicion that there are going to be a lot of underprepared individuals in every profession. Okay, not just lawyers or law school students, but the real world is not what goes on in academia. Honestly, and I had to learn that. I graduated and started practicing in 2013, and think how much has changed. Right, almost 10 years. How much has changed now? And when I was in law school, there was no pronoun stuff going on. But there has been a lot since then. And actually, there's an interesting development. There's an interesting thing that happened. I'll share this with you briefly. And I feel sort of, I haven't really processed this fully, but there was a time when, now I'm remembering this sort of like in real time. When I was in law school, there was none of that conversation about, pronouns and a lot of that stuff that was going on there. But when I was practicing, I went and I did a series of interviews at ASU, and I had already been practicing law. I think we had started our law firm in 2000 and what year would that have been? We started 2014, so probably 2015, 2016. I went to ASU Law School to go and, recruit attorneys and interns and build a team. And I was down there meeting with people. And there was a lot of that, right? There was a lot of that conversation going on. And there was multiple people who were interviewing, and it was an interesting change in environments from when I was in law school, just a short, 4 or 5 years later. And I can't even imagine what it sort of feels like now. When I was in there, there was a lot of conversations about some, not all the pronoun stuff, but it was like trending that way. And now what I see is, I'm wondering, right, how that methodology of law school interfaces with an ancient legal system that is definitely like 30 years behind everything else. So what happens, right? How do you process that mismatch? Like, do you think you're going to get 70-year-old judges who are going to start talking differently and entertaining these arguments? I don't think so. And so what happens when you start making these arguments and you start to believe, because you've been taught that this is how you talk and this is effective? I don't know how that's going to work, right? In other words, the transition might be happening rapidly in other parts of the world, but I think it's going to be very slow in the law. Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. John McGarvey says, I just want to say I didn't watch the shooting. I actively avoid watching people die. I messed up and watched David Dorn. It messed me up for a while. Yeah, John, that's why I try not to play any of it. It is taxing. I gotta tell you, it is taxing on it. I don't like to watch it either. And I typically try to bail out of the videos before you start to really see it. But when you're editing videos, right, I'm sort of in there, like zooming in on the frames. Oh, well, there's a head. There's, somebody's guts blown out. All right. Got to clip that out for the show. Here, Thunder7 says, the man had already been violent, was carrying around a tow hitch. If he had thrown it at the officers, he could have killed them. It's a heavy metal object, more dangerous than a knife. He refused to comply, didn't go down after being tasered. Police had no choice but to shoot him to protect themselves and the people around him. Thunder 7, you're so funny, man. It's right to investigate and ask questions, but you know the anti-police crowd are going to call all police racist, terrorist killers. I know, and it's like you have to be aggressive with it because they're just going to say it. He's Chavez, yeah, so probably Hispanic. Are they going to be called racist? I don't know. It didn't seem racist to me. It just seemed like a bad shoot. You know, that's the first thing that this goes to. I didn't even think about it, honestly, this time. Question is, he looked like a white guy to me. Who is going to defend the public when all good police leave because of the hate rhetoric? I know, I've said this. This channel used to be dedicated to talking about bad popo, but then everybody started to really pile on the bad popo. Oh, I didn't share my screen with you. I was reading through this just to myself. You couldn't see any of that, sorry. But you know, it's been, I think the pendulum has swung way too far the other way. And I agree with you. I think there's going to be you're already seeing it. Police are bailing out of the big cities. Miss Lucky and Sergeant Bob say, if both taser probes didn't hit, it won't work. Good tactic to try. That trailer hitch can kill. Tough decision. Grouchy old cat lady says, the thing that irritates me is no national attention. If he had been black, they'd protest all over the place. If you watch the mainstream media, you think the only people cops shoot or use unnecessary force on are black people. Yeah, it's because it's a narrative that they're shoving down our gullets. Sergeant Bob says, did some simulation training with local PD last week, split-second decisions. Have you ever done that? In many states, any object that can kill is a dangerous weapon. Hitch is like a steel club. Would you want to be hit by one? Bad guy can cover a lot of ground in a second or two. Deadly, designed to do bodily harm. Dangerous weapon is any object that could be used to do harm. Thunder 7 says, Rob, you believe in the Second Amendment. If this drugged up thug was tearing down your mother's screen door, attempting to get your wife, since Chavez is the man's son-in-law, would you not shoot him? Oh, I would, but that's not what happened here. That's not what happened at all. How far does a violent person... the cop shot him. The guy didn't shoot him. The cop shot him, and the cop had backup there. Domestic calls are always the most dangerous to police. Think about that. Look, Thunder 7, I absolutely appreciate your sharing your perspective, and I love that you're as animated as you are, because it's true. We do have a right to defend ourselves, and the guy was antsy to shoot him. Since my other comment was just random complaining, are you sure the second call was someone else? To me, it sounded like the same voice. It might have been the same guy. I don't know. I thought you said something like now he's moved to the neighbor's yard and has a hitch. This would make sense if she parked in front of the original caller's house. Not that it matters that much, but maybe it would have added a perceived threat by the police. If Chavez displayed a willingness to present a threat to, quote, the public, rather than keeping it to his father-in-law, maybe he looks more unhinged in general than angry at any single individual. I see what you're saying, yeah. So in other words, the police couldn't act as a barricade, right? They couldn't stop him from causing harm to somebody in particular. So they thought he was a general threat to the public. And so now they have to a duty to the public, not just an individual. Kincaid says, sorry in advance, kneecap shot if they felt they needed to even use a gun in that situation. Just shoot him in the leg, says Kincaid. Miss Lucky and Sergeant Bob says, I'm with former LEO as to the conclusion. Close call. And Jeff Rook says, personally, I'd be less scared of a billy club than a trailer hitch in the wrong hands. Right? Like I said, those are serious pieces of equipment. I mean, my goodness, there's a lot there. And it looks like the Veil is here, says, hi, Rob, happy Friday. I'm surprised Matt didn't ask the DOJ guy if he was also receiving kickbacks from Hunter Biden and the Chinese business deal. I mean, after all, if the DOJ is covering up an investigation, then there has to be kickbacks somewhere in there, right? For the DOJ leadership chain, right? Have a fun weekend. You too, see the Veil. Glad that you are here with us. And I think that covers us over on watchingthewatchers.locals.com. MR was here. Yeah, and I think we got all the YouTube chats as well. And so I think we're about done, my friends, for the show for the day. I got one notice that I am traveling tomorrow. So I mentioned this on our morning walk and talk today when we were walking around the neighborhood talking politics. And I am leaving. I'm going to Wyoming tomorrow with my family. And I'm going to be there for about 5 days, 4 nights and 5 days. And it's going to be an awesome trip. I'm going to go and sort of check out, hopefully, Yellowstone and get some nature time in. But I will not be here for live shows Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. So I'm not going to be in this chair. I still am planning on posting videos and sort of hitting the news, but it's going to be more of the walk and talk stuff and, man on the street stuff, because I'm not hauling all of my gear, over there. But I'm going to have some fun. So there'll be a little bit of a change in schedule next week, but I still plan on posting. So I will hopefully see you there. But that is it for us for the show today, my friends. And I want to thank everybody who was a part of it, all your amazing comments and all of the participation. Everybody joining us at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. They are chatting away over there. Zach Nichols, JC the Music Man, Jason on Blast, and others are chatting. We've got on Rumble, Dog Digger said Yellowstone is closed due to flooding. Are you kidding me? What? Great. Well, I guess we're going kayaking in the Yellowstone National Forest then. We're going. Rain or not. Now, that's going to be fun. Also, check out our YouTube membership. You get a lot of the same content, but a little bit less community, to be honest. Locals is the better place. And click the join button, though, if you want to join on YouTube, which is right next to the subscribe button, which is also right next to that like button, if you don't mind hitting that for me. My law firm is called the R&R Law Group. We help good people charged with crimes in the state of Arizona. We love the work that we do. We're passionate about it. We're working on some really cool stuff at our firm, and it's something we do every single day, right? We have fun on this channel, but the hard work is done boots on the ground in the courts, fighting for people's constitutional rights against overbearing government prosecutors. That's what we do. Free case evaluations, 480-787-0394 if you'd like to talk with somebody on our team. And we really appreciate your referrals. They keep us busy. They keep us in business. They keep us focused and centered on the work that we're doing, and I'm grateful for it. Thank you to the mods who have modded down the fort for us all week long. I see Lean is here now, playing hooky, Lava Java Lava, the Antikiss Prime are all doing amazing work, making sure that things stay on track on the show. I see Talbert's mom says, thank you for the education and the truth. God bless America. Shout out to Talbert's mom, the Freak, Andrew Richardson, Jason Kincaid, Zorro, Robin, Curtis Bartle, Carano, and many others. And finally, thank you to our Spotlight supporters over at qsimple.com. Shout out to John, Chris Romero, David B3, and Dr. EMB, and they are just supporting the show with some extra monetary love. If you join up at the Spotlight supporter level on YouTube or an equivalent amount over on Locals, we'll share some beautiful screen real estate with you. And I'd encourage you to connect with QSimple and connect with people who support the work that we do here. But that, my friends, is it for us for the day and for the week. Going to be traveling next week, as I said, and we'll have some updates and some posts, but don't forget to check out our communities for the morning walk and talks and some of the member-only stuff, because there will be a lot of that coming out over the next few days. But that's it for this beautiful Friday. I hope you have an amazing weekend ahead, my friends. Sleep well, unplug from politics, connect with friends or family members, because we're going to be back here next week with more news and more politics, and we've got to be refreshed and rejuvenated to attend to it all. And I look forward to seeing you there. Have a tremendous evening, my friends. I'll see you all soon on the next one. Bye-bye.